Solo edition of the Rant Network because my partner in crime, David, is traveling the world, having a grand old time, and I hope he continues to do so because I abandon him all the time and let him run solo. Welcome to the Rant Network. This is a podcast dedicated on bringing unfiltered, uncensored conversation on a whole wide range of topics. This podcast is dedicated on a platform expressing opinions, share thoughts, experiences, ideas, and hear from a variety of perspectives. Clearly, an honest opinion. Hard to find in the media. Join us as we dive into the latest news, pop culture, politics, and so much more. Rants of absurdity of modern life, discussing deeper issues affecting society today. Sit back, relax. We got you covered. Again, this is the Rant Network. I don't know if you've been listening to the news at all, but there have been more crickets, again, about world issues. This was part of my comments a few days ago. You hear about Biden heading to Arizona to tout his climate change policy. I'm not sure if you missed it, but if you did, it was a heat wave, right? He sat there and said his acts are the ones that are fixing the world. Well, clearly, if there's a heat wave, you're not fixing much. And that I believe our emissions control are very important. As I do, the common washing machine used to use 40 gallons of water, now uses 12 gallons of water. And they want to reduce it even further, therefore want to clean clothes. But it's all about the environment, not about anything else. But I don't know if you remember, way back in the beginning, as a precursor to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we at the Rant Network brought up the idea that we believe that Russia is going to get involved and declared war a month before Russia invaded by their unilateral ceasing of distributing very important ingredient for fertilizer, which is still the case. But now there's something else going on. This is a little more serious. I don't know if you know of a country called Belarus. Belarus is a puppet government controlled by Vladimir Putin that borders Poland and Lithuania. Did you know that? Most people in the United States don't know Belarus. They don't know Lithuania, but they know Poland. And most people know Poland from World War II. That's where they know Poland, the former Soviet Union country. Now, the relationship between Belarus and Poland has been stained historically, and the political tensions are off the roof. These two countries have had disputes over borders, just like Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Palestine, right? So why are the news agencies not talking about this? In fact, recently, as early as the last few weeks, there have been military drills on the border, which is only increasing tension. You had Russia, China do a joint over off the coast of the United States. Didn't make the media very much either. So the issue is, why are we not talking about Belarus? The border dispute between Belarus and Poland dates back to post-World War I, right? These two countries gained their independence. The dispute revolves around locations around the border of the two countries, which has been a contentious issue. In 1919, the Soviet Union and Poland signed a treaty, which is the Treaty of Riga, which established a border between the two countries. However, the border was never recognized by Belarus, which was a part of the Soviet Union. So what's the point if Belarus recognized it or not is beyond me. It was part of the Soviet Union. In 1996, they signed an agreement establishing the borders based off of this treaty, but it was never ratified. Interesting. The main issue is location by a forest, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Belarus claims that the border should be located further west. Poland maintains it should be further east. Go figure. Another issue over where the border should be. But again, you hear crickets on the border. Now, I don't know if you understand this. Why am I talking about Belarus and Poland? Well, are you familiar with a certain group of countries called NATO, right? Ukraine doesn't fall in NATO, therefore doesn't govern the full power of the whole NATO group. So the question you should be asking is, who is in NATO, right? And the countries that are located in NATO is Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Montenegro, Netherlands. I go on and on and on, including Poland. Now, why is that so important? Because you got China and Russia doing joint military exercises on the U.S. border around Alaska. You have them doing joint exercises close to mainland China near Taiwan. And now you have Belarus doing pre-war games over by the Polish border. Sounds kind of like the Axis and the Allies are starting to form. And Belarus is making their stance well known. And what does that mean for you and me? Well, the world grain is an issue. If Russia gains control of the grain, they have control over fertilizer. Now, if they gain control and go into Poland, well, now you got World War III because all of NATO is nuclearized. Kind of crazy, eh? We're worrying about indicting President Trump. The news is consumed about indicting President Trump. But why isn't the news talking about NATO? Why isn't it talking about Poland? Why isn't it talking about Belarus? Now, Poland is in full support of the Ukraine. Because who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't support a sovereign country from being invaded from one of the big superpowers? It's kind of crazy. I don't get it. We're consumed about whether Trump should be able to run and not the fact that there is an encroaching world power about to cause World War III. We're worried about the environment, but we're not worried about food, inflation, the border. And again, the border's wide open. What kind of operatives are getting in through the southern border? Are they all children? Impoverished people? Why aren't they staying in Mexico? Mexico's a great country. It's part of the Western world. Why are they all coming to the United States where there's no border? You know, if you get caught in Mexico or in Canada, you're going to jail and being deported. But here in the United States, come on in. You hear now Massachusetts declaring a state of emergency, but they're blaming Congress, not an open border. Why is this the case? Why is the media being ostriches and you, the people, just being lamb up to slaughter? Did we not learn from World War II? Forgetting about it, not thinking much of it. It's not on my border, not my problem. You know, the whole reason why Ukraine, and again, I argue with anyone that's right of the center about the importance on helping Ukraine, because it's democracy. If you don't defend democracy in one place, don't defend it anywhere, because that's where the next war is going to break out. If you don't uphold certain truths, they're no longer truths. So what's the importance? Defending America, defending the spirit of America. But again, if you live in Canada, you hate me even saying that because it's about Canada, not the U.S. They're pompous idiots. No, Canada, we're not. And Canada, I grew up there. So I'm actually Canadian in most senses. And I'll be honest with you, that's stupidity. Because in the world, Canada doesn't bring peace. They bring peacekeepers. In fact, if you're from Quebec, you bring the largest majority of peacekeepers out of all of Canada. That's right, Canada. Quebec brings more peacekeepers than any of you else, including you, Toronto. But that's not what this rant's about. This rant's about ignorance, about not knowing what's going on around you, the consequences of decisions, the consequences of politicians taking a knee, politicians saying defund police, politicians and DAs not going after crime, the crime becoming exacerbatingly unbearable in New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, and a city near you, because I hear the subway in Toronto is just as dangerous as the subway in New York. This is crazy. And how do you create crazy? Well, civil unrest is the forefront leading indicator for fascism. I'm sorry. If you have this much dissension, you can have ugly holes of fascism. Look at Mussolini, look at Adolf Hitler, look at Cuba, right? The former Fidel Castro's. So again, why am I ranting? It almost seems nonsensical about all these issues. And what's the commonality? And David's not here to try and, quote, keep me on focus. But I am very much on focus. If you don't see what goes on in the world around you, and if you don't understand the consequences of those things around you, and that there isn't a single lens that could allow you to see as far as the eye can see, because your eye is layers of lenses, then you are a fool. And you know what? I can't say it any other way. A fool is a fool is a fool. Ignorance to only his universe and not the universe as a whole, which is an argument for global warming. And yes, there is such a thing as global warming. I just think the impact and the severity that we're able to change it by being a single country or a couple of countries without the other countries doing anything just becomes nonsensical. So you need China, you need India, you need Pakistan, you need Russia to comply. And if they don't comply, then all you're doing is punishing your citizens for something that's going to inevitably happen. You're not even going to slow it down. It's a snowball, guys. Again, we got the washing machine from 40 gallons to 12 gallons. That's a real significant improvement, something that's sustainable. The power grid isn't sustaining the electric grid for electric cars. We're not there yet. But when we get there, we should go there. But when it talks about world politics, the Biden administration doesn't have the legs to do anything. They are looked upon in the world as the weakest government in history. And you know, Canada, though your borders are sovereign right now, who's going to blame going to Canada? But your rights and liberties are being stolen by your prime minister. But you don't even see it. It's like whitewashed. You all got blinders. So to all of you tuning in today, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to this monologue. Again, open your eyes, guys. Watch the opposing media stream. See what the other people are talking about. See both polar opposites. See what's going on around you. Watch some world politics. Turn off your editorial news for just a day, at least one day a week. You might be more worldly. And as Walter Cronkite says, you got to understand both sides to find your center. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for tuning and listening to This Rant Network. This episode, we'll be back on Friday, noon Eastern. David will be back one of these days. I hope you've enjoyed and got some valuable insight to this rant. We appreciate your support. Like us, love us, share us. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern in the United States, Canada, and anywhere else where Eastern time is. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We love you. We'll keep on ranting. Thank you for